Discipline and consistency are two very important things. However, we can't lie. There is something that matters almost, I wouldn't say more, but almost as much as discipline, and that is motivation. Now, discipline is important. There have been videos in the past, I think some of my older videos, which talked about the importance of discipline. And let's just say that even in the times where I believe that I was not aligned with my goals, having discipline, which I had built up in the past, was so important because it still allowed me to do important things. It still allowed me to wake up at 5:30 and go to the gym. It still allowed me to do the hard work, especially when I didn't feel like it. It still allowed me to follow a routine and get stuff done. However, we can't lie and say that we can live life with just discipline without any motivation. After all, I believe that myself, and I'm sure that a lot of you as well would have never started a journey of self-growth if you didn't have a factor that motivated you to start in the first place. Mine was being in a very bad situation in my life. I may sometimes over-exaggerate the way I express it, but I do believe as if I did have nothing really going on with my life, unless we're talking about like stuff I enjoyed watching on TV. It looked like I was more interested in the stuff I was watching, the stuff I was consuming on TikTok, etc., more than I was interested in my own life. And I think the fact that I was tired with the way I was living and that I wanted to have more when it came to a social circle and when it came to like goals, that's what motivated me in the first place to start a self-growth journey, a self-improvement journey. Now, I believe that a lot of people, especially myself, go through some sort of cycle, let's say, where there's a period where you have a very high amount of motivation and then it dips down a bit and then it goes back up, maybe stronger than ever, and then it dips down a bit. And I believe that by keeping discipline in the long run, you're still kind of maintaining a constant improvement, a long-term improvement, and through motivation you have those short-term improvements that help build up on that. So that's the way I see it. Now, I believe that there are different ways to motivate you, and in this video we're going to look at three different factors that motivate people in general, and I will try and talk to you about them and see which one better fits you. Now, I would also want to tell you that it doesn't have to be just one of them. I actually follow all three of these motivators. I believe that you may consider some to be more important than others, but I won't tell you which one I believe to be more important. I'll let you decide. So instead of talking about three different things to instantly boost your motivation, stuff like that, I have done videos in the past about that, but today I kind of want to look more into like three different scales of motivation. And the first scale is the motivation of yourself through stuff that you want to improve with yourself. I don't know if I made that clear, but pretty much when you're doing a task, when you're trying to motivate yourself to do a task, to think about the results for yourself. So let's talk about the gym, for example. What can motivate you to go to the gym is to get a six-pack. It's something that regards yourself. Now, I do believe that a lot of people, when they start going to the gym, that is their main motivator, and it's very important. Obviously, for people who aren't in the best physical shape, imagining themselves with a six-pack and with an inflated chest is a very big motivation, because it will improve you in many ways. It will make you more attractive. It will make people see you in a very different way. We cannot lie and say that a person who's fat will be respected in the same way that a guy with a six-pack will. I mean, subconsciously, we do favor people who are aesthetically more pleasing. It's just in our subconscious. So my point is that a brilliant way for people to start finding motivators to drive them forward and to begin or expand their self-improvement journey is to pretty much imagine yourself and imagine the improvements that will come with yourself if you do the task which you are maybe procrastinating on. So even if we look at maybe job-wise, doing a very hard task, you will imagine yourself as that one person that one big businessman who in the future will have a lot of money and a lot of material possessions. Now, I do believe that there are limitations to just thinking about yourself as a motivator, and I believe that one of the main drawbacks is that sometimes your brain will gaslight you into thinking that you don't really want that thing. Now, I have witnessed a couple of times that when I'm at the gym or when I'm trying to work, as a coping mechanism, your brain will kind of gaslight you into thinking that procrastinating and watching one TV show, watching one more reel will not impact your improvement that much. So pretty much you'll eat the junk food, you'll play the video game, you'll do all that stuff because you've kind of convinced yourself that the future won't really matter. So I believe that that is the main limitation. Now, I do believe that the more you build discipline, the more you build willpower, the less this will happen. But I think especially for people who are just beginning to start their self-improvement journey, thinking about just yourself can have these drawbacks, and that's why I believe that 90% of the people who start a self-improvement journey usually fail within the first month, just because if they live on this type of motivation in the long run, or it's not even in the long run because it's just after like a couple weeks or a month, their lizard brain will just gaslight them into thinking that they no longer have to do this because it's not really what they want. So that fat person will eat the hamburger because his lizard brain will convince him that that's just who he is and he's just a fat guy and he'll never get ripped. So the second scale that we will be looking at is a family scale. So first you're looking at one person, now we're looking at multiple people, and a good motivator, especially for people who maybe are of an older age, maybe in their 20s and 30s or beyond, a good motivator could be their family. Now, this kind of lives into the stereotype of the hard-working man in the 50s who worked really hard because he knew that at the end of the day he had his wife, his loyal stay-at-home wife, and his kids. Now, family is becoming less of a thing nowadays, with people living more solo lives and focusing more on their careers. And I know that people will have different goals in their life, and so someone may not really want to have a family. I believe that having focusing on the family can actually be a really important motivator when it comes to your job as well. Now, I was at the gym recently, and usually I think that one of the best motivators for me is to visualize myself with that extra added muscle on me to try and motivate me to do those last 2 reps in a bench press or a chest press or a bicep curl when it looks like I'm no longer able to do any. However, as of recent, I've kind of had different motivators that have helped me, and one of them was visualizing the added strength that I would gain and how that would help me protect my family. Now, in my case, I am still quite young, so when I'm thinking of my family, I'm thinking mainly of my parents, but genuinely, I was doing hammer curls at the gym, and I was at maybe 10 or 12, and I was about to give up. My biceps were hurting like crazy, and what really helped motivate me was visualizing myself protecting my mother, and that just helped me do an extra 2 and extra 3 reps and just max out, go till failure, and that really helped me. There's a sense of maybe altruism in me, which maybe not everyone would have, but the sense that it's kind of my duty to protect the people around me, which is kind of what motivated me in that case. So this motivator kind of depends on what type of person you are. There may be some people who prefer aren't as altruistic. They're more like egotistical, and I won't really judge you because I'm egotistical at times. We're all a bit egotistical, and if it works for you, it works. So maybe picturing like doing that task for yourself could be more helpful. But for people who are a bit more altruistic, have a bit of like, they have people they care about, actually visualizing yourself protecting them can be a good like motivator for the gym, but also for other stuff. This can go for work as well, or for college. Like, if you're a student, like I'm currently a student in my second year of college, what really helps motivate me a lot is picturing myself like getting a degree, getting a really good job, and being able to like help my parents. My parents have been very helpful. They've always supported me through my school life, and I think that's a very good motivator, just visualizing myself being able to take care of them when they're older and I have a stable job. Now, the third scale we'll be looking at is the global scale. Now, while earlier we were talking about protecting your family, now we're actually talking about not just helping your family, not just helping the people you care about, but helping everyone. Now, I believe that especially if you do have some level of altruism to you, this could be maybe one of the best motivators. Now, I would actually like to show you something. It's something that I've showed to the channel earlier on, but I'd actually want to go more in depth into it, and this is my mission statement. Now, I would actually like to read you my mission statement here because it might help you with maybe what you would like to do as when it comes to finding a motivator regarding the whole world, which might help you. And it says, I want to be a source of inspiration for people. I want to be able to live life of freedom where I lead by example. I want to help people escape the limiting principles of this day and age and direct people towards a healthy lifestyle where they do what is good for them and the world as a whole. I also want to develop a strong social circle around me where people share my same ideals. So pretty much that's just based on like what I want to do through my work. So when I'm making these videos, I genuinely want to help people boost their productivity, find things that motivate them in their life, and improve their general state, not just in the outside, but also in the inside. Now, I believe that every single person, when it comes to work especially, need to find a motivator that doesn't just regard themselves, but also the world as a whole. How does what you're doing not just help yourself make money, not just help your family, but also help the world as a whole? How are you contributing to the world? Now, I believe that this is a great way to find purposeful work. A great way to find an idea for a business if you do want to start a business. Now, it can be anything. If you do want to do work which is simply for your own benefit, maybe go to a point where you're making so much money from that you can give it to charity. That's still contributing globally to the world. Find a motivator that will make you want to not just improve yourself, not just help your family, but also help the world as a whole. Help people who maybe don't have the same opportunities as you. Help the people who have had very unfair lives. Maybe what you do doesn't directly help them, but maybe what you do shows in some way that you are doing the best out of what God or whatever you believe in has given you. Remember, not everyone has had the same opportunities as you. Not everyone has the same skills as you. Not everyone is as intelligent as you. There are people who might be more stupid than you, might have less skills, might have less opportunities, might have less money, but somehow they've ended up being more successful than you. There might be people who right now are hoping to have the same circumstances that you are having, and they would die to have what you have, and they would make the most out of it. Maybe that should be what motivates you. Now, before I leave, I just wanted to share one last motivator, which I believe no one should do. I believe that it might be beneficial in the short term, but in the long term, it won't. And this is to, as a motivator, use something that you dislike. This can be a personal enemy of yours, or this can be maybe a hatred against society, against the government, against something that goes outside of your circle of influence and inside your circle of concern. I've got to be honest, I've used this plenty of times. When I first started my self-improvement, there was a guy who I really disliked, and sometimes as a motivator, when going to the gym, I would think about him, and I'd think about the next time we'd meet, and I'd think about me actually fighting him and beating the fuck out of him. And that was my motivator. Years on, I stopped doing that, but some things may happen. Some things have happened which have made me want to do that again. I believe that sometimes I'm more motivated when I'm pissed off. I've got to be honest. Sometimes my distaste for someone, or sometimes even my distaste for myself, when I believe I've disappointed myself, when I believe I've disappointed people around me, that's what motivates me. And although in the short term that may actually lead you to success, and I do believe that sometimes in the short term that does help me like bounce back and be more productive, I believe that in the long term you shouldn't think that way. You should never use negativity as a motivator consistently. Every now and again, if you're feeling emotional, if someone's got to your emotions and making you feel angry, it's acceptable. We're humans, we feel that, and sometimes that can be actually a good motivator. But if your whole motivation, what motivates you in your life, what drives you in your life, is a distaste for someone or something, you are distasteful. Negativity should never drive anyone's actions. It can maybe drive something you've done at least once, but it should never be someone's purpose. Doing something because you hate someone else is a sign of insecurity. And if that's what you're doing with your life, I think you should have a real long think about what is it that you're feeling, what problems you have, what way you've been traumatized in the past that makes you want to be like that. And you should maybe get your life together. I think that's going to be the end of this video. I might make a video later on about stuff that does actually motivate me in the short term, like short-term motivation hacks, which I kind of got into in one of my early videos this year talking about gratitude journaling, but I might go more in depth into that. But this video was more about the long-term motivation, and I hope you enjoyed. Now there's just one more thing I want to say, and that is to keep a strong mind and stay like a lion. Mwah.